Hello and welcome to It's Only a Sequel, your favourite podcast about your favourite fearful follow-ups. I'm your host, MJ Dixon, and today I have a very special guest with me. It's actor, filmmaker, artist, philanthropist, dreamweaver, Mr. Tony Martin. How are you?
True. I'm like Garth Marenghi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm okay. You know how it is.
Rolling with the punches. Yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
well, rolling might be an overstatement.
Fla- flailing,
Yeah,
flailing, falling,
you know,
and
just
occasionally rolling backwards and sideways, and
plowing hard into the floor and continuing, and
yeah, no, I get that.
regardless.
I get that.
But yeah, it's as you know, I always let our guests pick the movie we discuss. And you picked a particular favorite of mine. It's a film I've seen a lot of times. Creepshow 2.
Yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting discussion actually, because it's good to know it's a favourite of yours, but it's not a favourite of mine. And I picked it because I absolutely love the original. It's one of those films. I know we all say it all the time, but from the 80s, and when we were younger, and the first time you get it out from on that old Intervision, video cover in the shops and the library, and it just blew me away. The first one, it was at 1982, I think. So I would have been 10 then, so I would have been. I mean, my mum and dad were quite good at getting me videos out. It was a 15, I think, at the time as well, if I remember rightly. When it was reissued, I don't know. I think it was a 15. But yeah, it just blew me away. I remember watching it and just loving it, because I was growing up with like the Amicus anthologies. It was just like that, but just been updated somehow. And I just absolutely fell in love with Creepshow. So I remember waiting to see Creepshow 2. I just and I mean, it's already going to disappoint me because it's only got 3 stories. So when you're I don't know, 13, 14, whatever, and you what 15, I think was it Creepshow 2 came out in 87, I think. So about 5 years after the original. And but I was still expecting my 5 stories, and I was disappointed with the wrap rounds for a start, and then the stories just they didn't flow. We'll talk about this in a minute. I just remember. I mean, why did I choose this as my sequel? I suppose I enjoy it. I like it. It's got a lot going on, but it's kind of like it's a diluted, for me, a diluted Creepshow. And it hasn't got that oomph that the original did. But it's one of those films that's always stuck with me. Maybe for that reason, I don't know. I just I want to like it every time I watch it, and I try and I picture it. And I picture the 3 stories, and I think, right, I'm going to love this because it's got revenge. It's got like great characters. And some of them are a little bit one-dimensional, but like the George Kennedy and also Dorothy Lamour, I think, from the first section, Old Chief Woodenhead. They kind of beautiful old couple, and you're kind of rooting for them within the first 5 minutes, and that lovely little bit of characterization. Then you've got the lovely relationship they've got with the traditional the native Indians, and there's a beautiful moment with them. And then you got the kind of the typical nasty characters, the three
Yeah.
the high school kind of kids who are just like like the quarterback and two sort of sidekick type characters,
Yeah.
but take it that step further. And I don't know.
I thought what we do is go over the
About
stories kind of one by one and talk about
yeah,
them.
okay, yeah.
I have a
Yeah,
favorite in here. I imagine you probably do as well.
I do.
I mean, I saw Creepshow 2 first.
Oh, okay,
When I
that's
was about
interesting.
14. I'd remembered seeing the cover in not in the video shop, but like I think it was in Sainsbury's in the video section. I remember seeing the cover for it.
Wow.
And thinking, I've never heard of this. What is it? And then I went to a friend's house when I was about 13 or 14, and we watched Creepshow too.
So how old would you have been then? Sorry.
So I would have been, I was about 13, 14. This one's the one that I remember more fondly.
Okay, yeah. I think is that. I mean, it's one of those weird things. It's like when you see something first,
Yeah,
for the other, and I wonder how much influence that has. If I'd seen Creepshow 2 first time, I don't know, maybe think similar. It's interesting because for me, all the stories the three stories are competent, but they, like you say, they lack that sort of comic paneling and the little flourishes that I really enjoyed in the first one. They're like the kind of it's a more of a quirky element in the first one. Like Geordie Verrill. It's that with Stephen King. It's a very offbeat kind of feel to it, and I think that's and I missed that in the second one. I think as well. It's like that one. Geordie Verrill, Stephen King. It's only him, isn't it? And the Doctor, and his dad he sees kind of in the mirror, and then like in they're creeping up on you at the end. It's literally just E.G. Marshall and the guy. Like Father's Day, I actually adore. It's because it's just bizarre. It's this guy who sort of kills, who gets killed for. And he was an arsehole. Don't get me wrong, he deserves it, but he comes back from the grave, because he hasn't got his Father's Day cake. There's something about that I just really, really enjoy.
Yeah, I do.
It's just so favorite. Bizarre. So I'll talk about the quirkiness of the original film. That's what I loved, and that's what I missed, I think, from the sequel. Whereas what I find interesting again is that the three stories in the sequel remind me of any of them in the original. Of probably the crates. They've got a very similar kind of feel to them. I find the three in Creepshow 2 and the crate slightly overlong. And I find the crate again probably the most banal of the original, which is interesting because a lot of people actually find it their favourite. And I think the problem with the three in 2 is that I find them all very obvious. They're very kind of you know what's going to happen, within a couple of minutes, and that's not. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Again, I enjoy it. I just didn't have that sense of excitement watching it that I did in the original. So you've got the three stories. Obviously, you've got the old Chief Woodenhead. Do you want to do the synopsis?
So Creepshow, for people who don't know, Creepshow is an anthology series. Creepshow 2 is the follow-up to that. The stories are conceptually by Stephen King, but I believe most of them are written by George Romero, who actually does the scripting of them. Creepshow 2 features 3 stories and a wraparound, which is like an animated movie about a kid getting bullied while he's trying to pick up something he's ordered from the Creepshow comic book. And then you've got 3 stories, which is Old Chief Woodenhead, which is like a classic slasher movie. There's The Raft, which is like a classic creature feature, and The Hitchhiker, which is like a classic ghost story. And I see very quickly when I read over these my notes here, what you're saying really rings true, is that like these are like very basic versions of like the kind of horror stories that they're supposed to be. I'll get into that. Well, what's weird is I assumed your favorite would be Old Chief Woodenhead, and I assumed that you would assume that would be my favorite.
No, I actually find that the weaker of the 3.
I really like the setup. So Old Chief Woodenhead, we'll go into that one first. So Old Chief Woodenhead is basically about a guy who runs a shop in like like an old shop, like a mart in like an old kind of
It's like
Indian
a sort of
reserve
frontier,
uh,
yeah, like a
kind
sort of
of
old frontier town.
yeah, that really it's on its last legs. No one's shopping there anymore, you know.
That's it.
And like they've got no money, and then the chief shows up and says, "Thank you for everything you've done. Here's like basically a load of jewelry that's worth a load of money to say thank you for everything you've done over the years." And then the he's not the son, is he? He's the nephew
No, the nephew, I believe. Yeah,
of the chief turns up with his gang of mates, and they've come to rob the store because they're off to Hollywood because and this is like the big signifier is that he's obsessed with his long hair, so
right.
instantly you know where it's going. um he's obsessed with his long hair, and like that's all he talks about. He's going to Hollywood, he's going to be super famous. He's played by Holt McCallany, who you'll remember from like he's like always like a fucking dickhead chief in like everything, like or like some down and out cop who's been on the force for too long.
Yeah, yeah.
But there is not a drop of Native American blood in him. Like, so but I mean, the 80s was a different time,
I think yeah. I suppose you need to point out as well that I mean, I think I don't know if we mentioned it, but outside the shop there's a big wooden statue.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
so of old Chief Woodenhead, who is he's outside the shop.
Yeah, he's like the mascot, isn't he? I suppose of the
almost
store.
like a totem pole type thing, mascot. Yeah.
And we met when George Kennedy first comes out. He's like, he's painting him up, and he obviously cares a lot about this statue.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you kind of feel the bond of it. Like everyone kind of has like this mad respect for it, which is kind of a big part of the story, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the robbery goes wrong, and George and his wife end up dead, accidentally, and then old Chief Woodenhead decides that it's time to go and get revenge in the most kind of stereotypical Native American ways possible. And to be honest, I mean, I do. This is where it gets going for me, and I really like it. But it's a real shame that most of this is set up, and then you get like a slasher movie, very, very condensed for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and it's good fun deaths. It's
yeah,
and you can't wait for them to die because just arseholes, And so
yeah, I think it works really well. You get the guy who gets killed by the arrows. There's a guy who gets tomahawked in the head, and then obviously the guy who's obsessed with his hair gets scalped. And it's
just desserts.
Yeah, well, it's just loads of fun. My favorite bit is where the statue comes to life and it dips its fingers in the paint that got knocked over during the robbery.
Yeah, exactly.
And he applies his war paint.
Right. It's really cool, that scene. To see the fingers go down really slowly because it's made of wood, and then they just come up. It's beautiful,
Yeah, I do like it. It makes me laugh that every time you see Chief Woodenhead leading up to that, like every scene that he's in, you can see the guy who's stood in the costume just ever so slightly wobbling all the time.
Yeah,
like
I know. I kind of half wondered. There's a couple of times I think, well, is that deliberate? You're trying to give us a sort of a sense that he's about to. There's a spirit in there,
yeah.
But what really works for me, I think I mentioned earlier in that segment, is that kind of respect, because there's the love between the husband and wife, which I really like, and George Kennedy and I think it's Dorothy Lamour do it so beautifully, in a very short scene, and you can see that love, and the fact that George Kennedy's character, I think Ray and Martha Spruce, I think they're called. Martha's trying to get him to shut the shop, and they've got some money saved up, let's go and retire. He doesn't want to. He's hoping to still continue helping the people of the town, and especially the Native American Indians. And so you get that beautiful relationship. And then you got when the chief of the Native Americans comes in. I think the idea being the wife's a bit fed up with the fact he keeps lending and giving stuff away to these people and not making anything. And then the chief comes in with the tribe's valued possessions and says, you are doing this great favor. You've really helped us. I want you to you look after this for us. If we can't repay you, then after I think it's a Native American word. I'm assuming 2 years. Then you have this. It's worth X amount of money. And Martha steps forward, and George Kennedy. And at that point, George Kennedy's like, because she's just been sort of chastising George Kennedy's character about, how good he is, and stop being so good. We can retire, we can go and have a bit of a life. And she steps forward, and George Kennedy looks at her, and he's like, "Oh no, what's she going to say?" And she says, "So I thank I've just been having a go at my husband, saying, you give too much, and you think, oh, this is embarrassing." And she says, but you just proved me wrong. And there's a beautiful little moment there, which I think is lovely. It's a little triangle of respect, and I love that.
And it's a kind of, it gives him like a real out as well, because like the story is really a setup for like they've given their whole lives to this town for nothing, and then within a moment, they've got the last years of their life back, and
yes, exactly. And that's what makes, and when they come back in and you've got the three baddies there, that's what makes that quite hard hitting, because you've just had this quite poignant moment, and then obviously you realize that one of the three baddies is actually a Native American Indian related to the chief who's just been in, who doesn't care. All he cares about is going off to Hollywood. He's got his two lackeys that are those typical sort of sidekicks who have who're probably too scared at first to do anything, to say anything against him, but then get involved in the killing. They've got no choice. And then when Chief Woodenhead, like you say, they bugger off, and that war paint the hand goes down for the war paint, and you kind of can't wait to see what happens. It is an interesting story, definitely.
It's a good one, and it's like it's like kind of like an urban legend come slasher movie, really. Like, it's like the most classic kind of slasher movie you can get. Don't mess with kind of like the old ways, or the old ways
exactly
will come and and it's and I really like that the element of it, and I think it should be my favorite because it's exactly the kind of thing that I like, and it is really well done. It's a great starter, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. The more I talk about it, I've watched it a couple of times over the last few days to prepare myself, and I don't know. I mean, as a little standalone story, I like it. And there's no reason I shouldn't like it. I love it when he's looking in the mirror and he's, the baddie, this hair's going to to get me paid and laid on his way to Hollywood.
Like,
it's such a great line.
Was it like there's 100 million ladies out there just waiting to see this hair? Like, I love it. He's good. He's a really good character. Like,
he is. He is.
So much so that I was like, he's never really been like the main actor in anything ever again, but he really does steal the show.
Yeah, no, he does. He's definitely sort of decidedly horrible, and he does it very, very well. And the sidekicks, the sort of sidekicks you kind of, if they started on you, you'd like push them over, because they've got involved in this proud Native American with this spirit that's inhabiting old Chief Woodenhead. They've got no chance, and they deserve it. But I love that idea. And when the chief kind of when the chief wakes up and the jewels are back in his bed, and he drives over to the shop, and he sees the scalp of I think his name is in Woodenhead's hand, and he kind of gets it straight away. He doesn't have to go any further, and he says something like, your spirit can rest in peace now. So I don't know. There's something. I mean, it's a bit corny. It's a bit corny.
My one gripe with the with this story is that the ending doesn't really do anything. Like, like it doesn't really give us like. I mean, I know that Ray and Martha kind of the chief had revenge for them and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, this, the scalp's a nice touch and the statue's hand and everything, but it feels like there's no real proper ending to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone got their comeuppance, but like it seems to kind of it wanted to get to the chief, and that's it, really. Like,
Yeah, I understand. I was thinking that last night, and I was thinking, why is he driven off? And then my little kind of criminal minds brain starts working, thinking, what if the chief was if he rang the police from there and he suddenly got his jewels back, would the police then think that he'd done it to get his jewels back? You know what I mean? It's totally ridiculous. It's totally overthinking it. But I was kind of trying to justify it a little bit. And
I think it was like his friends, like two fucking bodies are just lying in that shop, and he's like, see you later. But that wraps up that mystery.
Yeah, but I didn't mind that though, because I think when he pulls up, he sees the scalp. Oh, I don't know, and the jewels. He's got the jewels back on his bed. I think he's in my head. He's kind of played out the whole 15-20 minutes of what's actually what's happened, and he kind of knows. And so I didn't mind that ending as such, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I like it. It was my one gripe with it. The whole thing was done really well, but it did feel a little bit like it just needed like some note on the end of it to.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think for me as well. I mean, you can see. I think I was looking today, and I know you can't go by what IMDb says in terms of budget and stuff, but I think it said the original Creepshow was $8 million budget, and this was about half. It was 3.5 million, and obviously the Creepshow 2 did have originally 5 stories, but because of the budget, they couldn't do it. And I think the lack of budget shows in this, because I'd like to have seen a little bit more of Chief Woodenhead, moving around. I know it's quite nicely done in the shadows sometimes, but it's almost a couple of times when you kind of felt a little bit cheated for me. But I just wanted to see maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I think one of the big problems with him is that once he's in motion, he doesn't look great.
No, exactly. No.
And it was already evident that they couldn't afford both a statue and a costume. So it was one or the other.
On IMDb, it said that and again, there's a rumor again. I don't know how seriously take it, but it said that Schwarzenegger was considered to play old Chief Woodenhead. So, but that's on IMDb. I can't really see that somehow, but maybe
that would have been excellent.
It would have been. It would have been interesting.
That would have been great.
So I'm gonna get it. I mean, as I say, I think it's probably my least favorite, but of the 3. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think
for me, it's a quite strong opener. But I guess that's where this kind of thing is great, because it kind of gives everybody a little bit of something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, the second story, this is my personal favorite. So one I always remember from when I first saw it, like I was always like, well, yeah, like, what were the other stories? Like they were always a bit vague, but I always remember this one clear as day. The raft. So this story is again, it's like a classic creature feature. Like
Yeah.
four friends drive out to like some lake, some lake, to go swimming, and well, the guys go out there because they want to get laid, and they take these girls out there. They go swimming out into this onto this raft in the middle of the lake, and then they kind of notice like a weird oil slick in the water.
Mm.
And I mean, I'll straight away, the one thing I do want to mention is that when you talk about this film having a low budget, like the oil slick is basically some bin bags in the water, isn't it?
Yeah,
Being pulled around by some string.
with some weeds on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the original FX guy was replaced, and it was finished off by Greg Nicotero and someone else, I think. So yeah, I don't think they were happy with it to begin with. So what that looked like, who knows? But yeah, I think it was he was replaced because of that reason.
Well, I mean, I like it. It's simple and it works, but there's a bit towards the end where you just fully go, that's some bin bags on a string.
Yeah,
You know,
it is. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the use of like ultra slime and kind of all that with this one is really good. So I mean, to cut a long story short, the oil slick starts eating them all one by one as they try to get off this raft.
Yeah, it's because the first girl goes, doesn't she? She gets gobbled up. And
yeah, that's it's a thing they don't address again, but she almost gets like hypnotized by it, doesn't she?
yeah.
And it makes her stick a hand in it.
That's right. Yeah.
And then
And it's like she's like, so what's that? And she kind of knows she shouldn't, but she's looking at it and she just can't help herself. It's like
yeah. So what's she called? That's Rachel.
That's Rachel.
Write the names down because there's Randy, Deke,
Randy,
and Laverne,
and
the
Laverne.
So Deke's like he's like a jock, isn't he? Like
he's like the proper quarterback.
Yeah, like his top comes off and it's fucking ab central, and then Randy's top comes off and he's like, oh, like a little pale guy,
Good looking guy and everything, but he hasn't got quite the physique of Deke.
Yeah.
The physique of Deke. I like that.
The Deke physique.
The Deke physique. That's what it is. I'm going for the Deke. What are you doing, damage? I'm going for the Deke physique. That's me.
Well, yeah. They all go out to this raft, and Rachel gets eaten quite quickly, because it turns out they used to him and Rachel and Randy used to go and help with oil slicks and stuff, and they're like, it doesn't say what they did, but they're studying some kind of like science or something, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they'd been out volunteering at like oil slicks, and they were like, "This is not an oil slick. This is something. It's someone's. This is on purpose," is what they say.
Yeah.
Oil slicks look like a big accidental mess. This thing looks like it's on purpose, which is quite like a good way of summing up this monster. Like it's like a purposeful mass of slime, I guess.
I mean, most of this segment played like one of the the kind of latest sort of shark craze, doesn't it? There's the capsized boat, or people's trapped in the water or off the water, and there's a shark circling, and it's in it. Most of it is about, well, how do we get off this raft? How do we do it? And Deke with the physique is about to swim for it. He's a swimmer, so they work out this sort of plan, and as he's about to go, this thing's not having it, and it comes up through the slats in the raft, and gets his leg, and that's actually quite an unpleasant thing, because you see his leg, he goes down and his leg comes up.
It's such a nice little touch, the leg when his leg breaks, and it's basically like aligned with his fucking head as it
Yeah,
gets pulled
exactly.
through.
It's
I'm not
it's
sure about the
really not.
physics of it's too strong, so like it pulls him down and he just has to let go of him. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not sure about that, but for this it works. Like although there's a weird bit
yeah.
where he gets sucked through, and then his fingers are like through the gaps in the raft, and I was like, how's that? How's that work? Because it's pulled his like his what you call it, his Super Bowl ring off, doesn't it? Like his
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and his
It's like
fingers are like
turning.
through the slats, and I'm like, but we just saw him get pulled down through a massive hole. How did that happen? Like, but I get
You know what? I never even thought of that before. Funnily
like you
enough.
forgive it, but you do go, that doesn't make any sense. But it's a,
Yeah,
it's a cool
yeah,
shot, so that's fine.
exactly that. And then you get Randy and Laverne. Having cuddling up. It's night time. It's cold. They're cuddling up. They're now keeping off the gaps.
Yeah,
And I think they fall asleep for a while. They wake up in the morning, and he's obviously, and Randy's feeling a bit Randy, isn't he?
he is. I think that's
That's
maybe why they
a
called
bit
him
weird.
that.
Yeah, exactly. I assume so because we're bordering on very dodgy territory here because he decides to have a little grope while she's still
He
asleep.
does, and it's really like perverse, especially considering how he's acted the whole time around her.
Because he's come across as the kind of the nicer one, hasn't he?
Yeah,
And not the dick. And then all of a sudden he's laid her down. He's rubbing her nipples and kissing
yeah,
her and stuff. And what's interesting though, you kind of think, well, this isn't right, obviously. Um, and you're probably about to get your comeuppance somehow, and then you get that shot of Laverne on the side of her face, and her kind of waking up, and she's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then she turns round, and it's got her, isn't it, on her cheek?
oh, it's just so well done because she's like going, no,
It,
no, as he's kissing her, as he's
it,
basically molesting her.
yeah,
And
exactly.
then as she turns around, she's like her face is just fucking melted, and you're like, oh
Yeah,
my god, like it
yeah,
is so well done. And
yeah. It's
I think it's
really
that
nice.
moment that makes that moment and the next moment and what make this the best one for me. Um,
Yeah, no, I do get it.
because
That was beautiful, beautiful
he
done.
dives into the water and he tries to swim away, and the bin bags start chasing him across the lake. But he gets out and he's fucking sat on the shore going, "I beat you, I
Yeah.
beat you," and it fucking jumps out the water. Uh, and then the last shot we see is this fucking thing floating away, and it just pans across
That's fine.
to a sign hidden in the overgrowth that says "No swimming,"
Yeah,
and it's just fucking. And that's why I'm talking about why the first one doesn't really do it for me.
yeah.
It's like there's a lovely little dark full stop on the end of this one. Like
That's exactly it. Well, that's to me what makes it like that whole. Sorry, that's the EC comics. That's the horror comics. It's
yeah,
those little twists at the end, and that last little cell of the comic, the no swimming, is perfect.
yeah, it's
You know,
absolutely amazing.
and it's like you say, you didn't get that at the end of
Old
Chief
Chief
Woodenhead.
Wonders, yeah.
Yeah,
My big gripe with this one is that they've got a fucking magic car battery. Like it just fucking runs
yeah,
all night long, like this fucking radio. And I'm like, that would have been
yeah, yeah,
dead within like an hour. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
but
but
yeah,
no,
no, I
but
mean that's
no,
why this is my favorite one. I think this is the practical effects in this are just fucking great. Like
yeah, brilliant.
it's fab.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Randy. It's quite interesting that I think, and definitely in the first Creepshow 1 and 2, and I don't really count Creepshow 3. If we
No,
get time,
yeah,
we'll talk about that in a bit.
doesn't count.
But and the Tales from the Dark Side movie, which kind of Tales from the Dark Side movie, which is kind of almost Creepshow uh, um, uh, 3. But if we get time, we'll chat about that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think it's the only time you see like breasts, and they're not. They're obviously they're slightly kind of shown in an erotic way, but it's almost uncomfortable because of what Randy's doing.
yeah,
which is quite interesting. You know, in that sort of 80s horror time, you know, it's actually made feel very voyeuristic. I think in that scene, and that's what they do really well in that. In that you're expecting Randy to get his comeuppance because of what he's doing, you know. But then she, you know, like I keep saying, I know, but she turns her face, and it's on her, and you're like, Randy, help me, and he's like, I can't do anything, and all he does is save his own hide. You know, it's like it's a really nice sort of twist on that concept. I think that always, and I've never really thought about it maybe before, but that's actually quite cleverly done, I think.
Oh yeah, I think that's why it's my favorite one. Is it just kind of like it's really well paced. It never kind of overstays its welcome. It doesn't drag itself out too much. But also it's just all the visual effects in it are really good. And
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
it's the most unique of the three stories, I think. You know, it is like a creature feature, but at least the creature's not like a swamp monster or, you know, like,
Yeah,
you know, it's
I mean,
something interesting.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like I said, I struggle with all three stories. And I do enjoy it. I mean, there's nothing to. Do you know what? For me, I'll tell you what Creepshow 2 is like for me, and I've said this before about other things, but it's about like listening to a Coldplay song. It's like they don't do anything, not doing anything wrong necessarily, but they're not really doing anything very fucking exciting either.
Yeah,
It's like
I know what you
it's
mean.
like it's just like it's all you know. Like Phil Collins. It's like I don't know. I don't want to be harsh, but to these artists, but you know, it's like I get the popularity, but it's like, well, you're not doing anything wrong, but you're not exerting yourself at the same time. And I think whereas for me the original Creepshow was, you know, if we're going to kind of keep this sort of musical analogy up, you know, would have been like Frank Zappa or someone with, you know, with some sort of progressive ideas.
Yeah,
Whereas, well, I think Creepshow 2 is safe, and it's
like a mainstream follow-up album
mm,
to like
yeah,
like a classic.
it's the difficult second album. That's
Yeah, like
exactly what it is.
it's like a band with like raw spirit, and then their manager's gone, you've got to clean this up a little
Yeah,
bit, guys. You know, we want more
yeah,
people to be able to be into this.
yeah. Or it's almost like they said, yeah, we want more of the same, but more of the same isn't. It's like they're trying to do Creepshow again, but forgetting the origins almost. It's
Yeah,
like, well, based on Creepshow and not, but forget about the EC comics. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier. You know, with the panels and with those, like you say, with that little last little panel of the raft where you got no swimming, and that's really nicely done. But I think it's that quirkiness of Creepshow that for me keeps me coming back to it. You know, it's like it's even the, you know, I was gonna say, I'm not a big fan of the crate because it is, for me, it's that more mundane story. But all the others have got that little edge, and they're all slightly off key, and they're all filmed slightly. I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about another time maybe, but they're all off kilter somehow, you know.
yeah,
And
I know what you mean. Absolutely.
and 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 then this and Creepshow 2 comes along, and it's far more run of the mill. Oh, but as not to say it's not enjoyable. So I think I need to say that it is still enjoyable,
Oh
but
yeah, I mean it's by no means perfect, but there is a lot of charm to it still. It's just
exactly.
yeah, it's missing the that kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like there's like a kind of like an edge to the first one, you know,
Yeah,
like a punk
it's
rock feel
almost
to it.
it's very much its own film Creepshow, and I think was very, I think because obviously, and then you've got the Romero directing the first,
Yeah.
and adding the flares that Romero adds, you know, and then Gornick's directing the second one, and obviously worked with Romero, I think, on Dawn and then Day as well later, but oh no, just before. But I think he missed a bit of the flair for me. But
Yeah, it would have been nice to see those kind of like comic panel like light and kind of
I think so.
dots
And I
and
think, so maybe quickly before we move on to the third one, I mean, in the first group show, Tom Atkins is in it. I mean, and you know, and in the wrap round, and that's brilliant. And that wrap round is so fucking good when he's doing he's like, and he slaps the kid. That's like, it's horrible, you know. And then and you see the child's cut the voodoo doll thing out, and he's stabbing his dad. I mean, it's really quite unpleasant
yeah.
again. And the second rap round in Creepshow 2 again, the bullies get their comeuppance, but again, it's a little bit more mainstream. It's a little bit less for me. It's just less developed. I don't know. It's a
I
bit
know
more
what you
obvious.
mean. Yeah, I, it was an interesting choice to animate it, though. I think.
Yeah. And
Like,
again, I liked it. But I just, and I think the creep as well, again, in Creepshow 2 wasn't brilliantly done. I know it was voiced by Savini.
I think no, did he not? I thought he played it. He didn't voice it, but
Oh
he's.
no, sorry, beg your pardon. No, so yeah, no, he didn't voice it. No, beg your pardon. He is played by Savini, yeah. And I just thought, the design and the animation of it just wasn't particularly exciting. Whereas, when you got the creep from the first one, he appears at the window of the child, and Stephen King's son, the original, and then he appears at the window and you get him looking up. I think that was genuinely quite creepy.
Yeah.
And that was lacking in the animation. Although I enjoyed the animation, I thought there was, again, something missing in the wrap round. But we all love seeing bullies getting their comeuppance. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love it. That's probably the reason, a lot of us, watch horror films, because we've all been in that situation where, bigger, nastier people have kind of pushed us over or whatever, and you kind of wish you had a chainsaw or, or acid in your hands or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I suppose really we should talk about the third part.
Well, yeah, the third one. You're probably going to have to take the lead here a little bit because here's my notes about the third. So the third story is called The Hitchhiker. It's a classic ghost story. It's a bit of an urban legend, I suppose. I feel like I heard the story before I saw the film.
Yeah.
But it's a woman. She's driving home from a gigolo one night. Classic setup. And she hits a hitchhiker in the road, and there's no one around, so she drives off. And then she's tormented by the ghost slash spirit slash resurrected spirit of the hitchhiker until she gets her final comeuppance. So my notes basically read, oh, look, there's Stephen King's It book in the background.
Yeah. In the bedroom, isn't it, at the beginning?
Yeah. And then Stephen King's cameo, this man's a maniac, because he just has to be over the top every time he appears in anything. Like,
yeah.
But I do like it. But I'm like, oh, here he comes. He can't not do it, can he?
Yeah, of course.
But my only note on this, outside of that, is there's just not much to it. Like, genuinely, like the visual effects aren't particularly exciting or well, or it's not that they're not well done. There's just nothing really happening, in general. There's just, for me, there's not a lot to the story. It's, a woman hits a hitchhiker and then the hitchhiker appears and says, "Thanks for the ride, lady."
I think, do you know what though? That's what I like about the story.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's my favorite. Because I suppose first off, it's quite refreshing to see, the female visiting a male gigolo. I mean, and her being the kind of the baddie, cheating on her husband, as opposed to the husband is aged, husband, going to a prostitute or whatever. I don't know, just plots of head. The other funny thing is, I swore for ages that the gigolo was Nathan Fillion, which it's not. But it bloody looks like him, you know,
Does a
Castle
bit,
and
yeah.
Buffy, and Firefly and stuff. And and it kind of even sounds like him. And I swear I was sworn it was him for ages. Anyway, it's not. But anyway, yeah, I just like this episode to me resonates. I like she reminds me a lot of Aunt Bedelia from the Creepshow 1, where she from Father's Day. She's you know she's in the first one she's driving along and she's a little bit bonkers talking to herself to get to the guy, the dad she killed. And then in this one she's talking to herself, trying to work out how to get she wants to get back in time for her husband, basically, because she's been with her male prostitute. She's desperate to get home, so she's speeding and she's talking to herself all the time. And there was something quite nice about that.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the way that they tell a story through her basically justifying it to herself or coming up with excuses,
yeah.
And that is that. I mean, when I say that it's my least favorite, and there's, it's still fine. It's just, for me, this should have been the middle one, I think.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Do you know what? Again, do you know what? I don't know if it's something to living in Kent, and we were brought up near Maidstone and near Bluebell Hill, and everyone knew about the Bluebell Hill hitchhiker ghost.
Oh, right, I see. Yeah.
So there was a you can imagine the ghost hit blah blah blah. Hitchhikers hit would appear in cars. That's what we were kind of told when we were kids.
Yeah. Well, we had a similar one by Tunstall Hill that, and this is what I mean by it being like an urban legend is I think.
Yeah. Of course. I think everywhere's got those.
Yeah. And so by the time when I saw this, I felt like I'd already heard the story before. And so and then I feel like it doesn't add anything to it. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. See, for me, it did. For me, I actually liked the visualization. And I know you said you didn't like the special effects in this, but I actually really enjoyed them. And the kind of the yellow coat and there was a kind of, it's almost a sort of mental health thing as well. You kind of after a while you can think, well, hang on, is she seeing this or is she not seeing this? Is it anxiety? And that's kind of what you kind of led to believe at first, I think, maybe. And then she hits the tree, doesn't she? I think, if I remember rightly. And then she wakes up. She's like, okay, everything's fine. I dreamt it. And then she gets back to the garage. And it's like, thanks for the ride, And there's this little
I love the puppet at the end.
Stubby little thing climbing up.
I like the with the no jaw puppet thing.
Yeah, I just really liked it, and I don't know. There was something. I suppose at the time it was almost zombie-like. Before there were huge amounts of zombie films, it was just there's no stopping it. It doesn't matter what you do. You can run it over. You can do this. You do that. It's gonna be there, and that's not because of anything physical. That's because of something supernatural, and you're going to get your comeuppance somehow.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter
I know what you mean. I think if there'd been,
for me,
if there'd been like a no swimming sign at the end, something akin to that, it might have brought me round. But it's just,
I think, if I remember rightly, I mean, for me it worked because I think I think it said Dover on the sign. I think you do see that again. I suppose if I was living in Kent, maybe that resonated. So I was like,
yeah, perhaps, yeah.
I think first time I saw it as well, I was like, "What? They're going to Dover?"
That's quite a long drive.
Yeah, I was like, "That's a long way you're coming there." Yeah, I don't know. There was something quite but again, I think there's something about killing the innocent and you know, and that is resonates with me. There's something about nothing to do with the story. It just happened to be there at the wrong time,
Yeah.
and he gets hit, and then for whatever reason, his spirit is not going to rest, or you know, I don't know. I like the idea of that revenge. I don't know. I mean, obviously, she, you know, whether she deserves it or not, I don't know. Probably because she
Well,
left
I
him
mean,
there.
I think that's the point of it, is that she holds no one in any kind of in any kind of
No,
regard apart from herself.
that,
Um,
she's morally bereft, isn't she?
yeah, you know,
And
and then she commits the ultimate sin, which is the thing that should make her rethink her choices, but instead
yeah,
she
yeah. It's
she
almost,
she
it's a
bolts.
chance. She has a chance to kind of. She's made the mistake, and then she's umming and ahhing. She's thinking about it quite a lot. Even on the way back, she's thinking, right, should I do something about this? Should I do the right thing, or can I get away with it? And she thinks I can get away with it. And at that point,
Yeah, I do think it's funny that when he appears at a car and he's like, "Thanks for the ride, lady," like the first time, like you, I feel like naturally you'd go, "Oh shit, you're still alive," and somehow attached to the car. Like
yeah,
you go,
yeah,
"Fuck, right, I'm really
yeah,
sorry. Like, look, let's get you to a hospital or something." You wouldn't
yeah,
just
yeah,
go,
yeah.
"Oh fuck, I better kill you again."
But
Like,
I better rang three. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe by that point you've lost. I think she's kind of lost mental faculties, maybe. But yeah, I mean, you're right. You know what? There's another thing as well that I've always really liked was I've always liked that sort of hitchhiker story and the car story. And I know it's not exactly the same, but it's Carnival of Souls, which I love, which is about a you know road accident, and also there's a Twilight Zone episode called The Hitchhiker. From the 1960 or whatever, the original series, and they're not the same or anything, but there's similarities. So I think that I probably saw those when I was younger as well, and that whole hitchhiker thing always stayed with me. There's always something quite mystical
yeah,
and
well, I know
about
what you mean.
hiking. And I think again, you know, as I say, you know, we have these urban legends, as we all do, and and I just you sort of see it, and also you kind of put yourself in that position, and you're like, you know, you got to get home. You can't, you know, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? You like to think you'd call, you know, stop when you call an ambulance. But what if you've been cheating on someone and you've got to get
Yeah,
home?
no,
You think, oh,
absolutely. I think,
and and you kind of you get that sort of, and I don't know. There's you have that moral dilemma.
yeah,
Um, I, I don't know. So for me, uh, again, that was definitely my favorite of the three. But like I said earlier, originally there were going to be five stories. One was on the Stephen King story, which was actually used in the Tales from the Dark Side movie, which is a couple of years later.
oh, which one?
It was about a cat.
Oh man, that's the
Yeah,
second best one in there.
yeah, it's great. And but a lot of people who worked on Creepshow 2 also worked on the Tales from the Dark Side movie. So it's almost like a sort of it kind of it's the film that Creepshow 3 should have been. And
Well,
then they added,
yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I prefer Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, over Creepshow too. Um, like, but I mean, I hold that film in very high regard.
mm,
Um, but
yeah,
I mean,
it's great. Debbie Harris was brilliant in that. But I love the whole Tales from the Dark Side, you know, series. But again,
yeah.
I think originally, again, the Tales from the Dark Side, the series, again, that's Romero, wasn't it? And that was again going to be a Creepshow series. Um,
Oh,
but everything changed. I don't know if it's if the rights to it or whatever it was, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. It became Tales from the Dark Side. But the original thought was that it was going to be Creepshow series.
ah.
Um, Yeah, but I mean, I love Tales from the Dark Side. You know, the series I thought was absolutely blinding. Um,
I absolutely adore the movie. I might have seen that
yeah,
before I saw this, perhaps, which is maybe why. But the gargoyle story always sticks with me. It's so well done.
I don't know. I mean, I mean, the more I think about it, the more, I like Creepshow 2. Don't get me wrong, I do. But I don't know. I just want to see more that originality of the first. I think, like I said, I think it's a bit like Chinese Whispers. I think with a lot of sequels, though, the first one's sort of taken from a source, and then the second one, they just think, well, let's make the same again instead of going back to the source.
Yeah.
And it gets diluted. The further down you get, it gets diluted. It's like Chinese Whispers. It starts off saying something, and then by the time you got to 4 or 5, you're saying everyone's saying something else. And sometimes that I'm not saying that's not beneficial, but oftentimes it isn't. So I think for me, Creepshow 2, I enjoyed it. I'd have liked to see more of the flair of the original, like you say, the panels and that kind of that sort of fun comic book vibe. I'd like to have seen more of a twist, more off kilter like the first stories were.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's missing that for definite. It does. I feel like trying to animate the wraparound tries to kind of make up for that, because I feel like they went, well, look, if we animate it, we can do something bigger.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. But then I think after the first one, where you don't need to see the creep too much, almost, you just see him at the window, and I thought that was really lovely. I mean, I know Tales from the Crypt, he introduces the story, and that works really well. But I don't know. There was something about it just didn't excite me like it should have done. The rat round in this, and the the creep. It's like, okay, it's okay, but this isn't what I'm. This really isn't kind of where we could be. That was my vibe.
I mean, the fact that Creepshow 3 exists really helps this film.
Yeah, I know. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it when it first came out. I remember very little about it.
I mean, it's just got the it's obviously got the rights, and that's it, isn't it? There's no one. I don't think anyone's involved.
But I mean, that really helps the first two films a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's. I mean, a lot of people say that Tales from the Dark Side movie is kind of Creepshow 3 because it has the story that was cut from the second, and it has a lot of the cast and crew. With the crew anyway went from Creepshow 2, and they were also in Tales from the Dark Side movie. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I want to like it more than I do Creepshow 2. But talking about it with you, I'm going to watch it again and appreciate what you're saying. I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, for me, it was the first one I saw of the two, and so it holds a very special place in my heart. Like, I mean, I like them both, like a lot. I probably like them as much as I like each, I would like this one as much as I like the first one, But I think, if I'd seen the first one first, I probably would have.
I mean, I just think for me, with the first one, you get the first story, Father's Day, and you kind of don't really know. You got this sort of family sitting around, waiting for something to happen, and you get these sort of weird flashbacks with the comic, surround. And it's like, what's happening? All of a sudden, there's a hand coming out of the grave, and someone once said, "Fucking Father's Day cake." It's like, what's going on?
I do like that.
And then Geordie Verrill, he's like, poor guy stuck in the middle of nowhere. His dad's died. He's clearly not very bright. All of a sudden, he's growing into a tree. It's like,
that's Stephen King can't bloody stay away though, isn't it? Like.
Yeah, but it worked. But for that,
it does. I like that one. That was the one this whole time I've been like, like going through the stories, and I'm like, what's the fifth story? I can't fucking remember, and it's the Stephen King one.
Yeah, and I get it. And then you got the Ted Danson, Leslie Nielsen one.
That's
which is great. I mean, again, you're kind of bordering again on obvious, but it's kind of well done. And Leslie Nielsen's fucking brilliant in that.
Yeah.
And then you get E.G. Marshall at the end with the cockroach story, and he's in that tower on his own, and that's just bizarre.
Oh yeah.
And that's just and we can all kind of relate to that, bugs and stuff, and all of a sudden, that I don't know. There's something about that film that, for me, one of those ones I've got on continuous with, like Return of the Living Dead and The Wicker Man and New Hope and stuff. There's something about some films that I can watch, and but no, so again, it's like Return of the Living Dead 2. What am I even? I can't even begin. Can't even begin to say how much I hated that film. I've only seen it once, and even when I was a kid, I won't watch it. I can't watch it because I was just so excited to see it because I loved the first one so much. And I remember even whatever old I was as a teen, I thought this is fucking awful. And I probably should watch it again and appreciate it more.
I don't mind it. It's all right. The third one's where it's at, mate. The third one is. I'm all about it.
Oh, the third one I thought was great.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, but I mean, the first one, I was like, again, it's one of those. First one's like the first Reanimator or the first Creepshow. It's one of those films you watch and you're like, they're doing something a little bit different, and I love that.
I think the problem with that series is they're all just their own kind of thing, aren't they? Like each film,
of course.
They're all just doing their own thing. Like even the crappy sequels that came years later, like they're just kind of, each one's it's completely its own thing.
Some of them just some didn't work, but some, a lot of 80s films, just sort of fell by the wayside, and it's like I don't know, Creepshow just stands out. Even the score, even the soundtrack, it will bring me back to that place. And I remember watching it with a couple of friends, and we just totally engrossed by it, apart from the crate, which we found boring. but and then Creepshow 2 again, yes, it's by the time that came out, I suppose maybe everything, it was all a bit standard. I don't know. Like you say, it's typical creature, typical ghost, typical revenge, typical sort of slasher, and there's nothing wrong with any of that.
Yeah, but they do feel very very basic stories. But I think for me, that's why the oil slick one stands out, because at least it's like something a little bit interesting within that.
Yeah, totally.
Whilst like the Hitchhiker and the Indian Comes to Life are like literally stories I feel like I'd already heard before I saw these.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, when growing up, we had like a story about like an angel in the graveyard that like was like a statue, that would come to life when some fucking kids were like messing around, throwing stuff at it and that, and so well before I saw this film, I was kind of aware of like the archetype of story. So I guess that's why those two feel like, I mean, they're great, but they do feel like they're just riffs on kind of timeless tales, whilst fucking bin bags in the water, that's just what the fuck.
That was, I mean, but you know what, I wouldn't change it though somehow.
No, it's fab. That's kind of part of its charm.
I like it. I like the bin bags as they are. And if someone said, because there's some CGI, I think no, I don't. I think it works still.
Leave the mouldy bin bags as they are.
Yeah, well, what I think the thing is it's that kind of unknown, and it's how do you fight a black slick? Do you know what I mean? You can fight a monster. You can fight any kind of physical being, but how do you can't? You can even fight if that was a shark. You could have a go. But the fact is, it's just a black mass that just kind of consumes you. That's what works with that, I think.
Yeah, I really like it.
Rock, because there's no escape from it.
And there's always good to see a bit of ultra slime in, from the special effects houses, just fucking getting the tubs out and going,
I love,
get some
I
sticky
love
mess
that.
in
And
there.
the thing is, when it's coming through between the slats in the raft, you kind of like you get it. You
Yeah.
feel it, because like, well, how am I going to stay off? How am I going to tiptoe around this raft? Because so I actually really liked the way they did that. I know it's easily done, but it was effective.
Oh yeah, it was really good, and yeah, you get a kind of real sense of what that thing is at that point, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't really make you, because obviously she was lying down. She could have been, I'm sure that at some point it could have sucked them down at any point. But yeah, I was just that whole misogyny element to it was quite, was quite unpleasant. That was probably one of the most unpleasant things in the film, actually. The fact that she's just asleep and he's got, boobs out and everything.
It really threw me, like, the first time I saw it, like, but I guess as like a teenage boy, I didn't quite understand just how bad it was. Like as an adult, I'm like, Jesus, man, like,
yeah, you now, and you're like, whoa, what's happening? Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's bizarre. It's bizarre to talk about and pinpoint, but yeah, it's definitely, and it probably at the time they probably didn't realize what they were doing so much.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's a bit more kind of like like The Burning, like that kind of stuff back then was just much more tolerated in cinema. Like
exactly.
like that would have left a very bad taste in a modern audience's mouth, I think. But I think
that's exactly it. And I wonder actually how much the audience reaction would change at Randy being gobbled up at the end, because you kind of think at the end, I remember thinking, oh yes, he's escaped. When I was 15 or whatever, oh yes, excellent, he's escaped. And then he got eaten. I was like, oh shit, he's got eaten. Now I look at it and I think, well, he deserved that for fucking,
yeah.
So I wonder if there's much of a difference in audience reaction if they'd seen it then and now.
I would have thought so. Yeah.
Just a thought that popped into my little noggin.
And it's a good thought to end us on, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me, Tony. I've really enjoyed chatting Creepshow 2 with you.
I also have. I hope I haven't been boring.
Is there anything you'd like to plug before we go?
No.
No.
No. I mean, look. The Witches of the Sands, I'm directing. I'm loving directing it. We're nearly there. Please take a look if you can. Other than that, guys, everything else I'm in. I'm just enjoying the vibe.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening. You can catch these podcasts on anchor.fm/Micho, MICHO, and they go about once a month. If you want to catch them early, you can go to patreon.com/Micho, MICHO, and you usually get these at least a month early there. And then if you go to mico.co.uk, you can check out our films and video games and comics and all that nonsense, t-shirts, the works. But yeah, if you're in a position to help the show, if you go to patreon.com/Micho, MICHO, for as little as like £1.50 a month, you get all sorts of stuff, comics and beta tests on video games and movies and all sorts of stuff like that. And it really helps us out. So until next time, just remember, it's only a sequel. It's only a sequel. It's only a sequel. It's only a sequel.